life that we know that the water will boil at 100 degrees Celsius. But the problem, we don't know right now we are at 20 degrees or we are at 98 or we are 97. So in terms of doing the assessment or evaluations, it's something that to make sure we know ourselves, where are we? So for my opinion and the way that I work with all the listed companies, that the way of assessment is to let you know yourself first. And anything that can be measured, I believe it can be improved. So the way that I will have to thank you for all the Thai company or the listed company. Also, we as a Thai people, we're very good in form. Some people said, oh, form and substance, Thai people, if in form, what you have to do, I can do it correctly. I am the grade A student, of course, and I can make everything is very good in terms of all the assessment. But the beginning of this thing is a little bit rare for Thai people. We don't like assessment, frankly speaking. We don't like to be judged by other people. But in terms of we share as a governance thing, we share about the sustainabilities. And I believe right now for the Thai company, we do agree that this is the board role to do it, not the CEO role. Okay, and the way I think we are now evaluate as a whole board first, but individual will come gradually. From time to time, I can see from some of the company, which I think Viti can share a lot on that one because he's is a board member of very, very big company, which is take care of a lot of things for Thai people. And before I end my session is that unbelievable that people trying to think that big company will be very good on assessment, which is not true. The good board is the one. The combination of the board and the responsibility of the chairman and member of the board will be the major key success on the assessment. And I think the way that we look through is that if the board altogether willing to do it, will come up with a very good result. This is the survey from Thailand. So I believe we are not bad, not bad, coming through and working hard for it. So thank you for everybody, right? Yes.
My next question now is to the gentleman, Kun Vitit. Knowing you for a long time, you've been sitting on many boards, actually. And my first question, is nothing to do with assessment. Since you've been sitting on so many boards, and we were talking down there, one of the things that struck me or interests me is how are boards picked, by a company. You sat in many boards, whether it be family-owned or listed public companies, and picking on those directors out from the market is not easy. At least in Thailand, it isn't easy. From your experience, how was that done? And any comment on that?
Okay. First of all, thank you very much for inviting me. I don't know if many of the audience know the company that I am the director, In Touch. Some foreigners here might not know what the company does or how big the company is. But actually, this company is professionally run, and the major shareholder is Temasek from Singapore. They own 40% of the company. So to answer your question, Kun Badin, concerning how to pick directors, let's start with this company first. And okay, we can expand to others listed firm in SCT. In Touch, we have a very professional approach in, let's say, searching for directors. We do employ also search firm to propose to us pools of directors for us to interview and screen. And I would say from our experience, we have done quite a good job in having first the so-called NGC, the Nomination and Governance Committee, to nominate the director. So they're the one who interview and screen directors before being nominated for the board of directors and also shareholder to approve the appointment. And this company, I would say, being majority owned by Temasek, which is a Singaporean conglomerate, owned by Singaporean government actually. I must say I've been on the board of this company for more than a decade, and I have learned a lot from them. And Singaporean, they are master of transparency and all this right approach in doing the things transparently, or good governance per se. And I must say, my personal background actually, I should have been invited for the previous session, the family one, because my family, my family business in car business. And I was also picked by Temasek to do the job in such a company which has totally nothing to do with car business whatsoever. So that's answer your question that we have professional approach in recruiting director for the company as far as InTouch Holdings is concerned. But as far as other companies that you probably would like me to touch on as well is most of the listed firm, which Kun Suwapa was saying that maybe 60-70% were not good, get good rating. I would say because of the fact that picking director or recruiting director in those companies mainly come from connections and knowing each other and inviting them for serving on the board just for the first reason rather than really expecting them to do a professional director's job. And a lot of them are high-ranking government officials who retired or ex-CEO or even current CEO of big corporation who through connection been invited to sit on the board of these companies rather than going through the proper recruitment process, what I described at InTouch. So coming back to a little bit about last session on the family business, that because of that fact, then this word that somebody kindly translate in English, in Thai is called เกรงใจ So because of that, the whole CG issue is distorted. And then we will come back to this assessment, self-assessment as well. If you don't dare to speak up, then you don't want to confront, and that's our culture. I mean, I fully understand that. And this is I'm not so sure whether to answer your question, that our problem, or what Kun Suwapa was saying, that maybe only 30% got the good CG rating, the rest are not, because of this culture that we have and because of how we recruit directors into our listed companies. Of course, next session we'll talk about assessment. Thank you.
I knew I can count on him to start something. That's why I asked that question. But for you to continue, how does your company actually conduct the assessment?
Okay, as I said, I've been in this company for more than decades, and the assessment of the board and of directors in the board has already started more than a decade ago. And I must thank the company secretary, Kun Vichai, who has been working very hard in pushing forward and even educating the board members to have a clear understanding of what they are expected of in terms of doing this assessment. We start with self-assessment, and then we have collective assessment. We have the conclusion of what each director has commented on, what are the weak points or the lacking within the board as a group, as a whole board. And from that report compiled by the company secretary, we have another so-called non-executive director session to hear the report from the ComSec and also draw up actual action plan on how to remedy all those weak points or those that we are concerned with. So the whole thing has been done professionally for more than a decade already. So we understand, and over time we learn a lot from each other, from the exercise of how to do assessment. And I believe in one thing, what they call no pain, no gain. Okay? So in the assessment, if you don't really, well, speak up, it means เกรงใจ and there's no pain. So there's no way that you can improve things if you don't speak up. And in our case at InTouch, we do endure pain. I can assure you that. So we are professional directors who understand our roles, and we're not afraid of pain. So we really try to do our job professionally. And that also leads me to another aspect of being professional director. You know, I mentioned that the recruitment of directors of most of the, I would say majority of the listed firm in Thailand are from เกรงใจ and connections and, you know, all this. So all these directors who one day they were top government officials doing their job fine, successfully, or CEO, now they have to sit in the board of director of a company, maybe even not knowing what the business is all about because it's totally different from his experience. So the first thing is his attitude, his or her attitude to say whether I'm willing to learn something new. New mean being a director. What is your role? What is your responsibility? What is your obligation as a director of the company? Do you understand that? Do you have the right attitude towards doing this job? Because this is totally new for you. But most people do not understand this. Do not adjust their mind that, look, I am now doing something new. I'm not a manager. I'm not a top government official anymore. I'm a director of the company. Even though we put them through IOD, but if the attitude doesn't change, the education from IOD doesn't help much. It might help a bit. I'm not saying it's totally useless. Of course, it helps. But more to it is the attitude of the director who been appointed, whether they understand their role, and that will reflect all the way to this assessment issue. Okay, I'm not saying that I'm deviate from the assessment issue, please. But it starts with the attitude, whether you understand your role as a director, and you started to learn new skill, new duty, and knowledge about the business as well. So it's a lot of effort being a director. It's not easy. And I'm speaking really from experience because, as I said, my background, I'm from totally different from telecom. This company, by the way, is a majority shareholder of AIS, which has the biggest, highest market share mobile phone in Thailand, AIS. So I have to learn all this new knowledge, totally different from car business. But of course, over decades, I must say, through hard work, through determination and understanding of the roles and duties of director, I must say I've done fairly well because the latest appointment, they have appointed me to be the chairman of AIS. So if I haven't done a good job, I don't think they would have made that kind of decision. So anyway, coming back to the role and responsibility and the understanding of the director who have been successful all his life. Most of the time, all these directors will be in their 50s, 60s. So they are successful in their lives. So to really change their attitude, to understand that, look, you're doing a totally new job as a director of the company. You are becoming a professional director. Can you do that? Can you really go back to school and learn something new? Because there's a lot to be learned as a director, because it's totally different from what you have done in the past, whatever that is. I must tell you, it's really totally different. But most people do not accept or understand and do not follow it. They just feel that they are successful. Why should they learn more? And at this age, what more do we have to learn? Okay, sorry, I take up too much time.
No, that's fine. Kun Ann, you want to add something to that?
Yes, may I? I'd like to follow up on both your comments, Kun Supapa, and also your comments, Kun Vitit. You're right about Thailand. Thailand is somewhat exceptional in Asia, along with, I'd say, Hong Kong and Singapore and Malaysia, in your corporate governance development generally, but also in your board development also. A lot of that has to do with your history with the Thai IoT, the respected individuals like Kun Chan Chai and Dr. Bandit. And you have been leading the way in Asia, and it's evident when you look at both the ASEAN scorecard and also the ACGA scorecard. What I would like to do is just follow a little bit up on some of the issues that were raised in the most recent, by the most recent speaker. I am very much in favour of board evaluations, and that's in place. I think the challenges I see, not necessarily in Thailand but in some other Asian nations, may be somewhat, as I would put it, cultural. Not wishing to speak against the elder members of the board, not wishing to speak if they have a seniority in the family. And I think this becomes a difficulty in board evaluation, which must be overcome if you to have an evaluation and a successful evaluation. So I'll put that one on the table. The other issue I would suggest is that board evaluations need to take into account all those various levels and skills of people and what they bring to the table at the board and the various perspectives. We want to see that diversity of competence building on the last session. But the second thing is I want to see, and globally investors want to see, that the board evaluations lead to your action plan, and you mentioned your action plan. But so what is going to be the action plan? It can be a personal development program, or it can be a board development program, or a number of other activities and actions that the board could take. One of which I'd like to focus on, which is succession planning. When you talk about where you get your directors, board evaluations can help you with that. In other words, you can identify through your board evaluation where you have strengths and weaknesses and also gaps in the board. And one of the outcomes from a board evaluation may be that you need to look very carefully at your board succession when somebody is predicted to retire or resign or be replaced on the board. And there will always be the other events that are going to come up to surprise you, like death or sickness or something like that. But I think your board evaluation should lead not only to your action plan for individual directors, but also, and action plans for the board, but also for your succession planning for the board in terms of its skills and competences. I recognise that Thailand and Malaysia and Singapore and Hong Kong have done well in this area, but I would suggest those scorecards, and I've actually done some of the scorecard work throughout Asia and done some board evaluations expressly myself. I would suggest then the practice falls away massively across Asia, not in Thailand, but massively across Asia, for those largely cultural reasons, in that people simply don't want to question the senior person, simply don't want to have the conversation about items that might be too personal or too pointed. Thank you.
Okay. Let's go back to Kun Jane. Okay. I heard from Kun Vitit. He mentioned something about assessing the board as a whole versus individual basis. From your experience, what are the pros and cons of those two?
This is a great question. Because it's controversial and because there are really mixed views on this. One of the large proxy advisors in Australia undertook a study back in 2010, and they asked this question, particularly about individual director assessment. And they asked directors their views about that. And what was really interesting was the sample was split into two distinct groups. There were some that thought that it was a really good idea, that individuals should be focused on their contribution, their engagement, their commitment, and improving their performance. And individual feedback would be very helpful to them. There was another group that were very, very uncomfortable with this. And I think it goes to some of the things that Anne and others have been saying about the culture. Yes. They actually felt that it was potentially damaging to board dynamics to focus on individual directors. Another thing I've heard from clients of mine is that, look, the board is a collective. That's what we do. We're there as a group to make decisions. So the evaluation should be about the board as a whole, not about individuals. So I think that the debate still continues, and I think even though that study was done back in 2010, I still find with the clients that I work with, there are very different views about that. Now, my own view, most companies that I work with like to start by looking at the board as a whole. They like to look at the group dynamics, they like to look at the board's relationship with management and so on. But I have one client that I'm working with at the moment. The chairman is I'd say he's an extremely high performer. He's very achievement driven, and he really wants feedback on his performance, and he wants all of his directors to get feedback on their performance. So the question is, how do we do this? What's the best way? Well, first of all, the kind of tools that you might use with an executive team don't work, in my opinion, don't work so well with the board. A 360-degree assessment questionnaire where you tick the box on all of your peers. Most of the directors that I work with do not go for that at all. And also, I made the comment earlier about those verbatim comments, oh, I know who said that. So I think that if it's not done in the right way, it can be damaging. But I think there are ways of conducting an individual direct assessment that can be very effective. So what I would recommend is what we call a 360-degree interview approach. And this is what I'm doing with a client at the moment. So I'm interviewing the chairman, I'm interviewing all the directors. I'm asking them to reflect on their performance and their contribution. So think back to the last 12 months, even the last 2 years. Think about some times when you've made a really effective contribution to this board. Think about your role, not only just as a board member, but also on committees. Think about where you've contributed a strategic insight that's not obvious to others. Think about a time when you've really added value to management. So they reflect on their own performance. Also think about some times where things haven't gone so well for you, where you think you learnt from your experience and you could have been more effective with the benefit of hindsight. Then I ask them to talk about their peers, confidential, off-the-record discussion. And then I say to them, if you could just give one piece of really constructive feedback to one of your peers or to each of your peers, what would it be? And generally it's things like, look, Fiona is fabulous in audit and risk. She really is. She really knows her stuff. But I'd like to see her contribute a bit more outside of her area of expertise. I'd like her to understand the business a bit more, get out there, do a few more site visits, speak one-on-one with management so that she can contribute a bit more broadly. Another example might be, there's a director called Doug. He's from the industry. He really understands operational matters. And when he speaks, everyone's silent. He really makes a difference. The problem, he might only speak twice in a board meeting. So the feedback might be, well, we want to hear more from him. So I think that the feedback that I get from directors and that I feed back to directors, or actually give to the chairman to feed back to the directors, it's constructive and it's helpful, and the exercise doesn't need to be a bruising or a damaging one. It can be very constructive and very effective. The only other thing I wanted to say about this is when the proxy advisor did this research, they also echoed my own personal experience. And I'll just read a quote from their study. They said, there needs to be more discussion of why, in the context of a board, the individual can be less important than the team. In other words, they're saying there's no reason why we shouldn't focus on individual director performance as well as the group.
Sounds good from Kun Jane. But in actuality, Kun Vitit, have you faced any difficulty assessing the board in real life?
Okay, I'm not saying that things are all that bad. I mean, Kun Suwapa already give us some statistic that we have quite a large number or percentage of companies listed in Thailand who have been given a high CG rating, and I'm really glad that In Touch Holding must be one of them.
5-star.
And there's also a lot of other companies that are doing a good job in assessing themselves, adhering to good governance and so on. But what I'm trying to say here is, look, there's a lot of fundamental change need to be done in terms of recruiting and then educating these people who are gonna change their lives, change their profession from whatever they have been doing into a professional directors. And this is something I think is, we have done a lot also through IOD or cooperation with various international organizations in promoting CG. But there's one issue that I'm not so sure whether I should touch here, but I might as well, is something I learned from Singapore, the Singaporean CG system. Whether the audience like it or not, but I hope I can share it with open heart. And that is, you have to link between compensation and expectation. It means if you invite someone to be your director in the company, and you say, I have expectation for you to perform your job as a director, then you should say, all right, with that expectation, this is the compensation that is matching to that expectation. And in Thailand, we are not doing that. And by not doing that, I think we are not going that far, Kun Suwapa, I tell you. Thank you.
Yes. Can I?
I thought you were going to say you're rich because you're getting paid so much. In general. But you can ask something before I ask you another question.
Kun Vitit raised a very good one, but we can start a new subject called board compensation, right? Okay, but anyway, they're not allowing me to do it. The time is running, right? So the way that we are working here, I feel as Anne and Jane have been saying about the combination of board members, and the very important role is the chairman. I mean, chairman can help by himself, like evaluate all the board. For example, you said, Fiona, you should speak more. Then if the chairman feel that's the area of doing it. But I can share all the people here that right now, what we do in Thailand is that we have 8 group of questions. 3 questions will be based on assessment on the board as a whole. That 3 questions will be first about the conduct of the board, the way it conducts, how it's a regular meeting, how it's conduct, how it's elected, the number of the board member. Secondly, it will be on the process of working to the board. And the last one will be a little bit on evaluations. They've been put in all the factors, what they need on the KPI, a little bit about the evaluations, right? Then another 3 questions will be on individual. Oh, this is very classy. So in terms of qualification, because one thing we have to bear in mind that business change, economic change. Even on this person who very good in Thailand, we always like to invite lawyers to be sit in our board, right? Maybe invite some auditors, ex-auditors to be sit in our board. But the last 3 years, all the law changed a lot, especially like M&A law, EBT, such all these things. Same thing about the auditors. The standard of audits changed a lot. But that still is not important until we like to invite the specialists of the business to be in the board. But business change. Right now, the new thing like e-commerce, other thing, the risks that they have to go through, the structures product, the way they have to go to more risks in terms of the business. The combination of all this thing in terms of individual evaluation is that what is your business plan, what's your goal, what your sustainabilities of your plan, and then it's your board right now fit this. So that's 3 about the board, 3 about individual, then 1 about the subcommittees. In Thailand, we have subcommittee like what's called risk committee and also compensation committees. Some firms have business strategies committee. Even some firms have like change committees in the board too, or and so we have some group of 4 the committees. Is this committee help the board in terms of get the board through the target that we want? So evaluate the subcommittee, and the very last one is to evaluate the CEO. And I think this 8 group of questions right now is the one that we use as a platform in Thailand at the moment. But some of them are doing very good. I mean, like Kun Vitit company or the big company you can name in Thailand. And you will see that right now, most of these companies have their term for board. For example, like a term for individual or board member or independent board member. And the very best thing right now is a term for CEO. So we see that the very big corporations right now will be very focused in terms of select the CEO because he or she will be the one who gave all the direction from the board and run the company. Yes, so I'll be on this one. Yes.
Okay. You're not tired yet, right? Because I'm going to ask you one more question.
Yes, please.
Okay. We talk about assessing the board as a whole versus individual. I'm going to throw you another one, form and substance. Okay? Your comment on form and substance.
Yes, I said that if you ask for the very good company, all these 8 questions have been asked. Yes, they have been asked. But do you get the right answer? I think Kun Vitit can answer better than me about this one, but the right answers. So what we can do in terms of this is that somehow we make it like confidentialities. I mean, make all the answers with confidence. I mean, maybe use someone as outside firm to collect all the information and give the brief summary to the board. But you don't know who vote for who. This is one thing that some companies have been doing right now. Some will use a very senior corporate secretary or very senior of the chairman to be the only one who knows all their detailed figures, and then release just only the whole board first. Maybe have a survey for individual, but not release the information yet. And then the chairman will use that information to, chairs and help him to understand the board member and encourage them, maybe speak more, do some training or do such things. So this is what happened right now, yeah.
A lot of developments and things, practices have been done on this board assessment. Kun Ann, looking from the aspect of the investors, okay, whether it be institutional or individual, private investors, how serious are they on this? I mean, are they really looking at this, or we're just doing it because the SEC and the SET or whatever is asking us to do it?
I think investors, and I'm looking down there at Prue Bennett from BlackRock, I think investors are exceptionally interested in the board. We are very interested in the people who do the do. We really, forget board evaluations, we would be doing our own evaluations of any board or any company, the board of any company we would be considering investing in. We want to know not only are they doing their job well, but we want to know, are they going to be honest with us? Are they going to disclose what they're doing? In board evaluation, are they going to disclose their evaluation processes to us? Not necessarily tell me how you performed, Mr. Chairman, but rather tell me what the process was and what the outcome is. What is it leading to? We want to see our boards growing in their knowledge and their skill. And we are particularly concerned in recent times about making sure boards are aware that their behaviours are also important. Board culture, company culture, and board behaviours. These are all very, very, very soft issues. So when you're looking and translating that into board evaluation, there is definitely no one-size-fits-all, but we are interested in seeing that boards are undertaking evaluation, that are taking it seriously, are telling us what they're doing. Why? It tells us about the board's commitment to corporate governance, to the way the company operates, and to board corporate governance improvement. The second thing is, and I'll go back to the point I made about succession planning, we are very concerned that the board has a diversity, and I'm including their race, gender, local, international, age. We want to see diversity of competences, skills, behaviours, experience, so that we can get that innovation and leading to value creation out of the company. So we are very interested in the people who are doing the job for us, yes.
Yes, very clear. Coming back to Kun Jane, after the board get the assessment, okay, does it actually being used by the board to actually improve themselves? Because we're talking about board performance. That's why we assess them, to actually help improve their performance. Does it actually happen?
Yeah, well, this is the $6 million question, because this is where the rubber hits the road. You can do the most beautiful board review in the world, but if it doesn't get implemented and nothing changes, then we haven't achieved very much. Again, I think it's a terrific question, and it's also been researched. And when directors have been asked, and companies have been asked, well, what changes did you make as a result of a board review? The typical changes that they made, and coming back to Anne, your point about board renewal and board composition, that's been one of the big outcomes from a board review. Well, we have a clear understanding of the kind of skills and experience and capabilities that we need given our future strategy. And when there's an opportunity to recruit a director, we now know the kind of individual we want to recruit. So that's one key area of outcome. Another one that this research showed up was directors need to deepen their understanding of the business if they're going to be really effective. Sure, we need specialists, but the more they can understand what we do, the broader their contribution can be. So one of the key findings of this research was we'd like directors to do more site visits. We'd like them to get out there and really talk to managers out on site and really understand what we do, not just sit in the boardroom. Another area was around strategy. Quite often in a board evaluation, we ask about the balance between strategy and operations in terms of what we cover in our agenda and our board discussion. One of the key areas was, well, now I think we've shifted the balance a bit more to have a bit more focus on strategic discussion. Another one was processes, agendas, board papers. Board papers, review of board papers and reformatting them comes up in every single board review. Because one of the things we're doing is helping to teach managers how to write the kind of board paper that the board wants to see. They don't want something this long. They don't want management reporting. They want to understand very clearly what is the author, what's the point that the author wants us to understand, and what's required of us, what decision is required of us, with some supporting information, but not reams of data. So changes to board papers was one. Anne mentioned succession planning, and in all of the board reviews I've done, and we use a rating scale out of 5, and 5 is good, 1 is poor. Succession planning rates the worst consistently. It's around about a 2.5, so it's a bare pass. So this is an area that quite often comes up as something that needs attention. Culture and dynamics, and also you mentioned committees, looking at the terms of reference and the structure. So that's what the research says. What have I found in my experience about implementation? This is something I've been thinking a lot about lately, because I think only about 30%, maybe 50% in the best case scenario, but I think only about 30% of what comes up in a board review actually gets implemented. And I think what usually happens is that there's some low-hanging fruit. So the chairman and sometimes the CEO, company secretary, will implement a number of things immediately. They'll go away and they'll make some changes. Sometimes in between the time we've done the review and when we come back with the board workshop, some changes have already been made, which is fantastic. But what's getting in the way? I think there are two things. I think the chairman is often very busy, and I'm talking about the top 50 companies in the country. The chairman's probably sitting on some other boards, and it comes back to the discipline too of the chairman. Some of them are very disciplined and they'll build it into the board work plan and make sure that it all gets followed up. But sometimes I think things fall between the cracks. The other thing is the company secretary is very busy. The company secretary is also often general counsel. The CEO is very busy. And so we've actually now changed our practice as board reviewers. I now say to the chairman, all right, we're going to do a board review for you, and I'm going to meet with you every quarter following the board review to help you to look at implementation and to help you keep focused on the implementation. The other thing we do is we've developed like everybody, we've developed an app. And this is called a board pulse check app. So what we do is we take the findings of the review, we then build it into this little app that everyone has on, or the directors have on their phone or on their tablet, and the chairman can monitor after each meeting whether the changes are being implemented or not. So let's say it's that question about, was our discussion suitably strategic? Was the balance between operations and strategy where it should be? We can get a quick read from every director immediately in real time. It's anonymous, it's confidential, it goes straight into a database, so the chairman can actually track at the point of every meeting how the changes are going and whether we're getting traction.
So I gather that it is being used, the assessment is being used by the board, although at 30% there's a lot of room for improvement. Going to Kun Vitit, the board uses 30% or more, I hope, in the future. But how about the investor themselves? You often talk about Temasek for your company as one of the larger shareholders, and also maybe the smaller investors. Do they actually get to see this, and do they actually ask you about this assessment and make changes along the way?
First of all, I agree with Kun Jain that the person in charge, if they consider themselves too busy, then and they don't know, or they list the assessment or this board assessment action plan as less priority, then nothing get done. But very fortunate for our company, we have very good company secretary who know the priority, and also the individual board members who understand their roles quite well. When we have the findings, we know what are the weakness or the lacking within our board performance. We develop action plan, and we monitor it. During the initial time of this exercise, as I said, we have been doing this for more than 10 years. We have our so-called non-executive meeting once a year. This year I think we must have already more than 5 times the non-executive directors meeting. So it means we have improved a lot in terms of first understand the roles and responsibility. Second, we are able to, through this exercise of so-called self-assessment and the assessment of the board collectively. Thirdly, be able to come up with the action plan to remedy all those weakness or weak points that we found in our findings, and then be able to monitor it and follow up and make sure that all the action plan are being implemented timely. And I totally agree with you, Jane, that a lot has to do with people who said when people said they don't have time, they're busy. It depends on their priority, how they set their priorities actually. So I must say I'm very proud that at In Touch Holdings we are among the top company that Kun Suwapa mentioned that we have a 5-star CG rating, and this is one issue concerning the board assessment part of the good governance, is the GC that we are exercising or doing at In Touch, and many others company in Thailand as well. But still, I know there's always room for improvement, and the majority of companies still learning, and I hope that their learning process, similar to us, would lead to a better result for every company.
Kun Suwapa, we've been talking about board assessment, and throughout the day I heard the word sustainability. Okay, how are these two related?
Well, there's a lot of related about evaluation. First evaluation and valuation. First evaluation with sustainabilities. But I think that I agree with Kun Vitit. One thing is that if you think it's important, you will find time. I mean, the way that you can't find time because you don't think it's important. So the way that do board evaluations, that I have a feeling that if the company and the board and the member of the board think this is important, what they do is that they are planning for the long terms. They do understand that to improve, make the board more effectiveness will be and bring the best to the company and to their stakeholders. So they already evaluation their firms in the long term. So in terms of doing this, I will have to use a no-name basis, but this is the real example. There was one of the property company who doesn't know how to manage. They said, "Oh, I know how to run business. I don't know when go to stock market and they have to appoint the independent director board. What does these people want to do?" So what they do is that okay, they going to the director, the DCP class. After DCP class, is there anybody who can evaluate my board? I said, I don't know anybody, but I know the firm called the credit rating. The credit rating will come to assessment your company, and one of the assessment will be interview the board of the company. So that company used the credit rating to do the board assessment from the company and start his firm from something like below triple B, so no red, and improve every year until right now he was AA rating company. If you want to know, I can tell the name, right? And then secondly, it's a small company who owned a very risky business. He was a bookstore selling. Some people can estimate that one. He was a very small to run for the award of the board of the year from IOD. IOD set up the award board of the year. Also, only the big company could run for the contest. But this company is so small. And I asked the chairman that why. He said that because we are so small, but we want to go big, so we would like to be the same standard as the big corporations. So they invite IOD for interview. I was so lucky to be one of the committees to interview this company, and then I found very impressed that if they think this is important, they will spend time and focus and bring, and the way that we found that luckily it's already decade that we start doing this. So it just see the result. I mean, if we just start 1 or 2 years, nobody see the result. But if you start now, you will see the company like In Touch. I think In Touch, the last decade have been past a lot of experience, let's say that. But because of the strong board member and the strong of the team, and I think they have been gradually successful, both the business and in terms of strategies, in terms of running the company past the difficult times. And I think for Thailand too, if you look at when the last time crisis, the one who already passed the crisis is the one who have a very strong board members. It's not the big company who was successful, not the largest or sales or not the largest net profits, but the one who really understand the importance of the company from time to time, give the benefits of their board on that one.
Okay,
Yes.
I ask Kun Ann first, and I will ask Kun Ann last. Okay, one more question is that we have come a long way on board assessment, but again, there's always room for improvement. What can be improved, what can be done, and who can help on that?
Well, I'd like to just pick up and in answering your question, pick up on a few words that we just heard and also the previous speaker, Vitit. Basically, I have heard we are gradually improving. Listen to the word gradually. I heard Kun Vitit say, I've been doing this, we've been doing this for 10 years. Now listen to that, 10 years. It is a journey where you have to slowly, when I come back to this culture thing, you might have board evaluations throughout Asia, but are they form or substance? And in Asia, because of this cultural thing, and I would talk about in Thailand, the kunjai that we referred to in the last session, the hesitation to offend might prevent individuals from being honest. And so I would suggest the gradual approach, the gentle approach to the introduction of board evaluation is crucial. I would suggest you need to talk about it at the board first and do nothing for a little while, have a breather, raise it again and bring it in a new light. But I think how you will overcome, and I see this throughout Asia as one of the biggest hurdles to board evaluation, to honest, full, complete board evaluations, to substantive board evaluations, is the cultural issue. Because you don't want to criticize your neighbor, you don't want to speak out against your elder or the most senior person in the Communist Party in some countries, and so it goes on. So I would suggest you need to take it gently and then start with an evaluation of the board itself and its practices, because that's the gentle, soft commencement point. I have no hesitation that board evaluation is coming, because I'm also seeing that regulators are being asked to have a closer look at the enforcement of corporate governance. So I have no hesitation that corporate governance and board evaluation is coming and is going to continue to come into your ken. But I would suggest watch the sensitivity, take it gently step by step, and certainly don't try to jump the fence before you can feel the sensitivity in your board.
Okay. Anybody else want to fill in the last part while I try to wrap up a conclusion here?
Thank you.
Oh, you pick up the microphone right away.
A little bit on this one is that the way that we spend time right now is that I think we are aware that the importance of the board of directors of the company. We are aware that the way that the harmony of the board, the way that they conduct the process is very important. And we come to the last one, that are they willing to agree about the assessment to make sure that they have a room for improvement. So I think for this one, what is for the improvement is improvement for the keyword that Kun Badit had been asked before is sustainability in long term. So I believe this is the key success for the last one. So when you go for studying, right, at least you have to pass your exam. So it's the nature of life. So please make sure you do the right studying and then pass the exam. Okay, thank you.
Okay, yeah, please.
Well, I'd like to clarify a bit about the word compensation, that I hope is not deviate from the word assessment, because to me it's very important. If you want to do some assessment of whether it's individual or board, you have to start with whether that individual understand what he is expected of or what he is obliged to do as a duty as a professional director. If the individual does not understand this, how can he make the accurate assessment? And in order to register in his mind what kind of expectation, what kind of role and duty and obligation he has as a professional director, it also always linked to compensation, in my opinion. Of course, Kun Bodin was questioning whether, from my background, whether I talk money, but it's not me personally, because I work with many directors, and I must say I understand them, and that's why I link that assessment to compensation.
And I might just finish off with one. I know that I'm probably the person standing in between this session and the drinks, so I don't want to take too long. But I just wanted to say that I think there's two areas that need a bit more focus. One is disclosure, and I'm thinking about the institutional investors. So in the ASX, which is the Australian Stock Exchange, the principles and recommendations around board review now suggest that boards might like to disclose any changes they've made to their governance practice as a result of the board review. And I think there's a number of things that are not too sensitive. I mean, obviously there are some sensitive things that you probably wouldn't want to include in there, but there's a lot of improvements that could be disclosed. I think that the chairmen are still a little bit shy about making disclosures. So I can assure the institutional investors in the room that I'm continuing to encourage them to make disclosure. And the other thing is, I think board review, we're still talking about process, we're now talking about effectiveness of process. We need to get more to outcomes. So we need to get boards to think about what are the key outcomes that you've delivered over the past 12 months. Now, albeit you might have worked with management on some of those things, like formulation of strategy, but I want you to go back and review how well you did a number of things in the past 12 months. For example, putting together the remuneration report. From my own experience with some organisations, it can be a bit of a last-minute rush, and they could have done a better quality job if it was a bit more planned. Appointments of new directors, we've talked about. So you recruited a search firm, okay. How well did they go? Did they do their job? Did we get an outstanding group of candidates? Did we get the candidate we wanted? Let's go and ask that new director we've appointed, how well did we do? And are there any areas that we could improve on?
Any questions from the floor? Oh. Oof.
Thank you to everyone up on the stage for a really good discussion. I just wanted to raise an issue about remuneration and remuneration of INEDs. And I'll probably be best friends with some people after this comment. I think INEDs are very underpaid in this region. The INEDs are there representing institutions like BlackRock for our clients. And when I look at, I think it's about $25,000 US, I think is around about the base fee. And that's for a position where we want someone to understand the business, do site visits, meet more than 4 times a year. A lot of companies only have 4 board meetings a year. We really want them to make a contribution and make a difference to the board. And I know they're not there for the remuneration, but I do think the remuneration does need to be at a higher level for those transitioning from executive roles and maybe government roles, so it is a career path, and people do see it as a profession. So I think that's one thing I'd like boards to think about, is to actually review that hot remuneration, and the INED really understanding that business to make that contribution. And I think Jane touched on this issue just at the last point. Disclosure to public disclosure around board processes and board evaluations must be challenging. And I mean, I'd love to have Jane's notes from when she interviews directors. It'd be fantastic, but that's never going to happen. And so for companies to disclose at least that they're doing the process and that there is some change. So we've got, from an outsider looking in, some understanding that there is that shift towards a better performing board, and we really want to see high performing boards that are debating and having constructive discussions about the issue, focused on strategy and delivering strategy and improving those processes on an annual basis. It does make for a better investment. These are things that we do take into account in our investment process when we're assessing government companies from a governance perspective. We do also use third-party information providers such as MSCI, Asset4 and Bloomberg, who are screening companies that disclose that they do board appraisals, and so it is coming into screens. So you've got other entities looking at your entity on these issues, and a lot of them, and going to investors in the US and in Europe and throughout Asia. So disclosure is very important, but I do accept that it's a challenge when it comes to disclosing issues around board appraisal processes.
Thank you.
I have a couple of questions, and the first one I would like to ask Jane. I think the way you do the assessment is very interesting, and I hope that it would happen in Thailand very soon as well. My question to you is that how would you handle the feedback, especially when the chairman is the one who got the negative feedback? Okay, and also in such the case that the chairman and the CEO is the same person. To the case of Thailand, most of the company, as you heard, people talk a lot about family business, okay? So we cannot get away from this. So if you were here, doing such assessment, what is going to be your action plan or how to do step by step? And the second one, may I ask Kun Vitit in particular, because of your experience and now you are the chairman as well, how you evaluate your unperformed directors, and you said that nowadays you have the action plan, but I would like you to step back, before now, that how you handle them before you have all of these in place. I think that would help us who are not really as big and as sophisticated company as you, to be able to get it implemented. Okay, 2 questions.
Okay.
Thank you.
Fantastic question. A really difficult one to end up on, so that's good. Looking at what happens in Australia, usually there'd be another director that would need to be nominated to give feedback to the chairman, whether it was chairman alone or CEO and chairman combined. Often it would, if there's a deputy chairman or a lead independent director or something like that, it would be that person. It might be the chairman of the nomination committee who might be nominated to give the feedback. In some cases where I've worked with boards, they might choose a newer director. The chairman might elect to have a newer director give the feedback because the person, they don't have a long-standing relationship. The person might be able to be a little bit more objective and independent. So the first thing is who's going to give the feedback. The second thing you might do is it's so delicate, it's so sensitive, it needs skill, it needs emotional intelligence. You might want someone to coach the person who's giving the feedback. And I do a lot of work myself in this area, to assist in giving the feedback in the most constructive way, so that it's not damaging, it's going to actually result in change, and it's going to be taken well. So I think you need to think about the skill of the person who you've chosen to give the feedback and get them some support if that's not something that comes naturally to them. I hope that answers the question.
Okay, thank you for the question. It's really a tough one, but it's normal, let's say, thing in life that we have to face, even though in country like Thailand where we เกรงใจ do a lot of เกรงใจ but as I said, within the group, starting with In Touch, and now you mentioned AIS, In Touch we have done a lot of things, as I said, in the past 10 years, and we have learned a lot. And that's also passed on to the subsidiary like AIS, which now I am the chairman. And if you check the record, you see that there are a few changes in the director recently. and that reflect your question that we have make assessment, and we have some changes that we have to make. And the approach is very simple. If I like to cite again the Singaporean approach, whatever you do, including this assessment and changing of director and so on, we have first what they call the process. You have to know whatever you want to do, you go through proper process. And with that, let's take the recruitment, for example, of director. We set up a proper process, mean we have a committee who is in charge of recruiting new director. We employ headhunt firm or executive search firm to help us screen and shortlisted candidates. So that's the process. The second one is called scientific approach. It means we look at the candidate from the scientific viewpoint. You have plus minus like SWOT analysis, but on an individual person rather than the company. So what kind of person he is, weakness, strength, and so on. And then the process that we are talking about have to be done transparently. It means you have a committee of 3-5 people, interviewing, shortlisted, and then make decision together as a committee. So this is the kind of thing that we do at In Touch at AIS, and we always able to solve problems, including the one that you just mentioned, how we assess, how we make changes, how we convey the message to the individual who we want to change. We go through this kind of proper and with transparency and with proper CG. Would that answer your question? Thank you.
Next question. Anyone else? No, you guys are hungry. Has been a long day. Okay, so just to wrap it up, what I gather from this panel is that board assessment can and should be done. Okay, we have come a long way on this particular matter, and if done right, practiced right, it will lead to a sustainable business growth. Thank you very much to the panelists and to the audience. Thank you very much. ขอบคุณครับ
Thank you very much, all the panelists. Thank you very much, all the panelists, for an insightful panel discussion. Thailand CG Forum has come to an end. Please don't forget to do the questionnaire on your table for future improvement. And lastly, I would like to extend my sincere appreciation to all of you distinguished guests for your great participation today. Thank you very much and have a great evening.
Few more. 1, 2, 3. Okay. 2. โอเคค่ะ
Okay. So token of appreciation for your figure, celebrate.
Lady first.
Let me thank our foreign guest speaker for this. Thank you very much. Nice to see you again.
Yes, nice to see you again. Yes, indeed. Thank you so much.
ครับผม 1, 2, 3. Few more. 1, 2, 3.
Thank you very much.
So much.
Thanks.
ของท่านครับผมขออนุญาตครับ 1, 2 ขออีก2 ใบครับ 1, 2
ถ่าย
My dear friend
พร้อมครับ1 2 1 2
ครับขอบคุณครับเห็นครับเห็นแล้วหมดไปไหนไม่ได้อะไรแบบ
ไม่ต้องเลยโมเดลเตอร์ของเกิน